no matter how good a tool is or the features, the way you can filter it or have a calendar view and pick your price by looking at the day and departure and arrival, all these platforms are limited to the data they can access.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Abroaders Travel Podcast, your weekly meetup with thousands of entrepreneurs, hustlers, creators, nomads, ninjas, wanderers, and world changers, all seeking to build the skills and connections to live a life without borders. If you want to learn more about what we do or download our entire podcast archive, check out the website, abroaders.com.
Happy Wednesday morning and welcome to another episode of the Abroaders Podcast. I'm AJ checking in from Detroit, Michigan. Eric is currently in transit to Medellin, Colombia. I'll actually be meeting up with him and another one of our friends, Danny, down in Medellin tomorrow. So I will be doing this episode solo. Today we're going to touch on a couple pieces of news, and then we're going to talk about paid flights a little bit. You can find show notes for today's episode at abroaders.com/paying, PAYING. So earning and redeeming points and miles, it can be fun. Hacking a system can be fun, or even just discovering a more effective way to do things. That being said, points and miles are all about getting you flights at a big discount, getting you where you want to go. It's a means to an end. And unless you have, a really, really high monthly spend, or you have a business that spends a lot of money that you can rack up points, if you travel a lot, you are going to need to look into possibly buying a flight here and there if you, splurge some miles on a business class flight. And sometimes it's just not necessarily worth it to use valuable miles if you have a redemption in mind and you're a little bit miles poor when there's a, say, $350 flight, and maybe you could use miles and you're still out $80 in taxes and fees. So sometimes it is worthwhile to buy flights unless you have a miles printing machine like doing Google AdWords and you're spending like $300,000 a month. So we're going to get into that a little bit. We have a couple pieces of news and updates. The first one is American Airlines is selling their AA Advantage mile right now at a 35% bonus. So that's not a no strings attached 35% bonus. That 35% bonus kicks in when you purchase 90,000 or more. There are bonuses as low as for when you purchase 6,000. That's a 15% bonus. So the key takeaway here is if you've got a redemption in mind, this can really be of high value. 1 mile at a time at the boarding area has a pretty nice write-up on this. So if you need to top up your account, you need a few thousand more miles for a redemption, or you have a particular one in mind, this can be a good deal for you. And a couple examples of what it actually costs to buy the miles and put them to use. 67,500 miles is enough for a one-way ticket in Cathay Pacific's first class between the U.S. and Asia. And that's a really hot redemption. That's a really good deal. And that would take you to about $1,400 out of pocket. And I'm pretty sure if you price that out, that would be around $5,000 plus. So, as far as saving off of retail value, really high value, you could definitely get a flight for cheaper. But if you do want to buy these miles with a big redemption in mind, it's not the worst thing. The same thing is on Etihad. I believe that's how you call it. It's a carrier from the United Arab Emirates. It's the second biggest carrier in the country behind Emirates, but you can go on their Airbus 380 first class. It's almost like an apartment. It's like a suite. And from London to Abu Dhabi, that is, I believe, 40,000 miles. So that would be about $850 out of pocket, which is a huge deal when you consider what it would cost to actually buy these tickets. The next piece of news is a little bit more targeted to folks in the DC or anybody heading from Europe to Asia this October. I know there's a lot of DCers that are kind of hanging out in Europe right now, and they will be in Bangkok for DC BKK. But something to keep in mind, if you still do not have your flights figured out, there are pretty good deals on one-way flights with Norwegian from Europe to Bangkok. Now, there's a direct flight from Stockholm to Bangkok, and if you book from another city, like, say, Barcelona, I think that's where I'm going to spend most of September, you'll end up connecting in Stockholm. So, if you really want, you could book the direct from Stockholm and you could EasyJet or purchase, your discount carrier of your choice to get up to Stockholm. But there are premium economy seats for under $500, which is a really good deal. This can be a little bit misleading because Norwegian is a discount carrier. So their premium economy, or even what Kayak would classify as business class, it is definitely not a business class, but there is more leg room. There's a little bit better service. You still do have to pay for a lot of the things that you wouldn't have to on another business class, but as far as having, a much more comfortable flight And I believe from Stockholm to Bangkok direct is like 11 hours. So that's definitely a long haul flight. So that's definitely something to consider if you are going to be in Europe looking to get to Asia. Norwegian's premium economy, they have pretty hot price points. And at the very least, if you are into planes or trying out different services and different airlines, they do have the 787 Dreamliner. So that's one of the bigger technological breakthroughs in aviation in recent history. That plane offers a lot of things. It has a lot of things that, planes of the past that we've all flown on in the last 10 or 15 years haven't had. There's some of the reviews coming in saying that it's, more friendly for the airline. They can pack more people on to make more money, but there are some features that are supposed to lead to a better flying experience, better technology. I believe remote controlled windows, kind of touchscreen windows, you can control the tint. And I think they actually have a air filtration system that is in some way, shape, or form different than your typical flights. And it's also supposed to reduce jet lag, a lot of things. So if you are a plane nerd, that's a pretty cool opportunity to get a little bit of extra legroom, get a pretty nice price point, and check out the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. So the core content of today's episode has to do with actually buying flights, because I did come across some pretty good deals that a couple of friends shared with me, and I thought it may be good to save some miles on my flight from Europe to Asia this fall and buy one out of pocket, because there are some pretty good deals. So I was kind of toying around and looking at the different tools that I would typically use if I was going to try to help, a family or friend, get a deal on a flight. And typically when I'm looking for flights, as far as paying for flights goes, I'd go to google.com/flights, I'd go to kayak.com, or I'd go to Skyscanner. Now, I know there are a lot of tools out there that all have different features that may be more user-friendly or people may find value in. But I think if you're going to pick a few, that's a pretty good starting point, because they all are a little bit different and they all do yield different results. And that's kind of a key takeaway here as far as any tool or Orbitz or any booking engine is, no matter how good a platform is or how you can filter things, as far as the deal you get, the price you are quoted, those platforms, they are limited to the data that they can access. And, it's not ridiculous to think that Google can access, almost anything and get all of the deals, but that's really not the case. When I was looking around at paid flights today, Google Flights had some winners on certain routes, Kayak had some winners on some others, and then Skyscanner came in as well. So that kind of just showed me that no matter how good a tool is or the features, the way you can filter it or have a calendar view and pick your price by looking at the day and departure and arrival, all these platforms are limited to the data they can access. So if you are going to do a paid flight and you want to look into it a little bit and get a good deal or try to find the best experience, definitely keep in mind, as of right now, there's really not a clear-cut winner for finding the best deals. If you don't want to spend much time on it and you just want to say, hey, I'm going to go to Google Flights, I'm going to take the best deal and buy it, that's your prerogative. But if you are actually going to look into it a little bit, you should really explore at least a couple of the major booking engines. So today when I was looking for flights from Europe to Asia, there are three main themes that I found when I was looking for flights. So there's finding the deal, finding the flight, maybe use some different booking engines, you tweak dates, maybe even tweak different airports, and you try to position yourself to an airport that's got, more advantageous route to your final destination if it's a long haul flight. After that, you really need to confirm what you're getting. Each booking engine is a little bit different, and each of them communicate, different things to you in different ways. So you really do need to confirm what you're getting. And there's a handful of ways that you can go about doing that I'll share in a minute here. And then finally, after we find the deal, after we confirm what we're getting, you really should do anything possible to leverage that paid flight. And often that will be in the form of making sure you credit the miles earned on that flight to the proper account. Now, as far as finding the deals, I already kind of shared to you the few tools I'm using right now. There's definitely more tools out there, but there are only so many hours in the day, and you kind of need to pick your fights a little bit. And I feel between google.com/flights, kayak.com, and Skyscanner that I will at the very least get an okay deal. It might not be the best deal, but between those three, I'm going to do okay. What I really like about Google Flights is their map. So with Google Flights, like any other booking engine, you would put in the airport that you are going to be departing from and the airport you'll be arriving at. And what you can actually do is there's an interactive map, and you can actually click on that, and it'll show you You can zoom in and out of it like any Google map, and it will show you the price from that airport to all these different cities. So if you really don't have strict travel plans and you're saying, hey, I'm trying to get from, I don't know, Europe to somewhere in Asia or South America, you can plug in your city from wherever you're going to be departing, and then you can look at the map and it will show you the best deals based on your criteria, and you can filter things with layover, amount of stops, class of service. So that is pretty slick. The only downside of that is, like I said earlier, is, their data or the way that however their algorithm works, they don't always produce the best deals. Kayak is kind of tried and true. I feel like there's always a decent deal to be had there. But their search functionality is a little bit more limited than Google Flights or Skyscanner. And what I like about Skyscanner is you don't even have to put in a particular airport. You can just put in an entire country. So you could say, I'm going from the United States to Bangkok, or I'm going from the United States to China. And then they will find you, essentially the best deal that they can pull from that. And actually from Europe to Asia, I was actually looking at flights from, I believe, Barcelona to Bangkok. The best deal I found for the date I was looking at on a one-way was on Etihad, which is a nice airline I referenced earlier. It's from United Arab Emirates. It was, I believe, like $330, which is a pretty nice deal because that's a pretty big itinerary. That's, maybe, I don't know, 12 or 13 hours of travel time with one stop. And so wrapping up finding our deal, I would urge anyone that doesn't have a system of their own or a tool that they really are in love with to at least explore Google Flights, Kayak.com, and Skyscanner.com. I think they all have their unique benefits. And once again, you really know where the best deal will be, so it's worth to check out at least a couple of them. Now, once we find that flight, we are not done here. We need to actually confirm what we're getting. I actually had really no prior experience with Norwegian Airlines. And when I was looking at Kayak.com, I always figure it's at least worth it to throw a Hail Mary on a paid flight and at least search and see what business class is at. Maybe there's a mistake fare, or maybe, you only have to pay a couple $100 to essentially upgrade a business class, which in my opinion is almost worth it any time, as long as you can afford spending a couple $100 extra to have just a significantly better travel experience, especially considering a flight over 10 hours. And on Kayak, the Norwegian flight I was looking at, which was the one I referenced earlier, which is ultimately premium economy, which is really nice, but it's definitely not business class. So had I not gone to SeatGuru.com, I would not have been kind of tipped off on that, because I had a friend that told me that he had a really good experience flying Norwegian business class. And like I said, I know nothing about Norwegian really. I'd never flown it before. And so I just kind of assumed that it was a nice business class. But it was a friend that had limited experience with business class. He'd flown some nice airlines, but he thought that was just kind of, it was an okay business class, but it was a great deal, so it was worth it. And I would encourage people looking at, flying from Europe to Asia to explore Norwegian, but it's definitely not business class. So if you're dealing with a premium economy or a business class thing, which I've looked into quite a bit over the last couple of days, the airlines will do a really good job of telling you on why that their premium economy or business class is so great. But I've had the best luck looking at third-party reviews, whether it's a blogger or a forum that can kind of give you an honest scoop and give you an idea of what you're getting into. So far, we've talked about finding the flight. I've mentioned a handful of times those three tools I used. I've mentioned about kind of understanding what you're actually getting. And for me, as far as my recent experience, I want to figure out the class of service. So I'm going to, shoot out some Google search queries about reviews for the airline and the class of service. I'm going to hop onto SeatGuru. I'm going to see the actual specs on that particular plane I'm going to be flying on. Even if an airline is updating their fleet, there might be some routes that have older planes that are just, pale in comparison to their new planes. So you check that out. But now we're talking about leveraging that purchase. And like I said earlier, you pretty much, the best way to do that is in the form of crediting miles to the proper account. And if you really want to go to the next level, you may have, the amount of miles to be gained from the flight you buy play a role into which flight you buy. But honestly, I think that's something that just really, really complicates the process of buying a flight. It's already going to take some time. You're going to check out a few websites. You're going to do a little bit of diligence. And ultimately, you're just going to buy this flight. And most flights, especially if you're price conscious, you're not going to buy a flight that is going to make your frequent flyer mile career and give you so many miles you can do a whole lot with it. But it can definitely top up an account or be a nice complement or be a nice base. And even it can play a role in getting status. But when we talk about, buying paid flights, I think the most important thing is to get a good deal, to ultimately get the best service possible, get the best plane possible, get the best airline possible for the lowest cost. Once you start trying to buy your way into getting frequent flyer miles, you're essentially playing into the hand of the airlines, and you're picking a flight that's $300 more because you're going to earn more miles or you're going to get this or that. If you're going to buy a flight, I think you get a good deal that you're happy with, and then we're in this third step now of the process where now we figure out what we're going to do to leverage that purchase. And it's really straightforward. The main decision you're going to need to make is, where do you want to accrue the miles? So whether it's Star Alliance or One World or SkyTeam, if you have an opportunity to get the miles credited to a certain program, which program is that going to be? And unless you really have a very diversified portfolio, and you're going to look into some future redemptions, and you're going to see, which account you could maybe use some more miles, you're probably going to want to just continue to add on to the account that you've got, the most miles in. There's no point in flying Air Berlin and getting 5,700, whatever the currency is. I honestly don't even know. I'm ignorant to that. If I was doing that, I know off the top of my head that Air Berlin is One World. And I'm going to credit those points to American because after my flight to Colombia, I'm going to still have some points. And I know I would be going to South America over the next few years, and America's great for that. So that's the key takeaway, I guess, is you do not have to commit the miles you earn to the airline you're flying on. There's probably a partner, and it's probably going to be more valuable to you, and especially if you have points already in another account to continue to add onto those so you can get to the point and break through so you can actually use those babies and book a flight. One thing I will acknowledge that I'm leaving out, and I'm leaving it out kind of intentionally, is that, if we're to use American as an example, out of all their partners, there's different rules on how you earn miles on those partners. For their partners and their One World partners especially, you can earn American Airlines points when you fly with those airlines. You can credit it to American. But that being said, you might not get as many miles depending on the airline and depending on the class of service. Typically what you see with American, for example, is you'll get anywhere from 25% of the actual miles flown up to, like 150% of the actual miles flown. And it depends on exactly what the deal is with the airline, and it depends on the class of service. And if we're in the business of buying paid flights, we're most likely trying to find the best deal, which means we're probably going to be in that deep discount category as far as the fare classes go. And so we're not going to get a huge amount of miles, but that's not the point. We're just trying to save money. We're trying to get a good flight, and we'll take the miles they give us. If you really want to take it to the next level, you need to look into whichever program it is you want to buy miles, or wherever you've got the partner, and look into the rules. I mean, as far as American goes, there's a lot of different tiers and categories for how they actually distribute the miles, or how they calculate how many miles you earn. It depends on the airline and the class of service. But like I said, we're buying a flight here. We're trying to get a good deal. So that is first and foremost. And then we will just try to make sure that we can get what we can and get it into the right account. So kind of coming full circle, like I was sharing with you guys, my takeaway from looking at some paid flights is, you need to find your deal. I've been leveraging those three tools, google.com/flights, kayak.com, and skyscanner.com. Then you need to actually confirm what you're getting, and that could be looking on an airline's website and getting an explanation of what their premium economy is and what you have to pay for and what you don't have to pay for, or as far as the configuration of the plane and the actual seat you'll be on, which is much more important if you're dealing with premium economy or business first class. You go over to seatguru.com and you can figure that out. And then like I also said, you can check out some reviews from bloggers, individuals. There's also YouTube videos. And then the final thing is just making sure that once you do buy the flight, if there's an opportunity to accrue some miles in the right program, make sure you do that and make sure that you credit those miles to the account that you would prefer to earn them in. One more time, you can check out today's show notes at abroaders.com/paying, PAYING. This week's International Jam of the Week is a little bit of a throwback. It is Santigold, hailing from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and the track is from 2012, and it is titled The Keepers. Safe travels.
That's it, boy. Just State your case, you're just as wrong.
Hey Broaders, don't be shy. Hop over to the website and join our email list for exclusive travel hacking content. If you like what we're up to, the best way you can support the show is by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. Lastly, we would love to hear from you, so send your show feedback to Eric or AJ at abroaders.com. We will see you next week.